Okay, so let's try to understand the Maven terminologies. So artifact and group ID are the most commonly used in the Maven. So basically you heard this words most common. So group ID. So what is the group ID? So this will identify your project uniquely across all the projects. So that means if you go back to your Maven repository.com, you will see a lot of official jars present there. Okay, so all the softwares were developed or published into that Maven repository, right? So whenever you ask your framework to connect to the jars, how it can uniquely identify your Selenium or mobile automation or API automation. So it's based upon the dependencies we saw. Okay. Now, for example, when I say Selenium, so Selenium have a unique group ID. So there are a lot of projects here, right? Application, metrics, category wise. So at least if you see this, yeah, 3.6 version. Let's open the version. So Maven will uniquely identify Selenium project with the group ID given here. So tomorrow, if you want to work on API automation project, in that case, you can simply say rest assured, and we will see that what is the group ID given there. Okay, so this is about API testing, and you see that group ID here is io.rest-assured. So that means out of hundreds and thousands of projects present in Maven repository, Maven will identify the project uniquely by the group ID what you are passing. Okay, so that's why we say here it as group ID will identify your project uniquely across all other projects. So when I said that you have to use that 4 lines of code, in that 4 lines of code, one line is about group ID. Okay, so if you give this that specific project which you are looking for, then it will go and connect. In the same way, artifact ID is a sub project of the group ID. Now, Selenium is a language written by multiple languages. You can implement it in Java, Python, C# or Ruby. So for every language there are jars. Okay, so group ID is a main head. So Selenium is a group ID, is a big project. In that there are many sub projects, like if you want to automate it in Java, you have to use Java sub project. So that sub project details are passed as part of artifact ID. Okay, artifact ID is nothing but a jar name. Okay, this is a project. In this project, you are actually pulling the jar name called Selenium-Java. Okay, so this is basically sub project. So in that way, group ID and artifact ID are differentiated. So when you pass these 3 lines up in your project, first group ID, Maven reads group ID. So after reading group ID, it understands that this guy wants something from Selenium project. So first of all, it will filter with Selenium. And next, it will read artifact ID. So it understands that in Selenium project, this guy is looking for Selenium-Java jars. This is nothing but a sub project. And then it will go and connect to that. And the next step, you said version 3.6. Okay, so out of artifact IDs, what are jars I have for Selenium Java? This guy needs 3.6.0, and it pulls and pushes into your project. So this is how it works. So in this way, group ID and artifact ID plays a major role. So you can publish your projects in Maven. Okay, if you want to build a project and if you want to share with your some colleague outside your organization, you can simply create a project, because however when you want to create your Maven project, these details are mandatorily you have to pass, like what is your main project name, what is your sub project name. So pass all these details and publish your project in Maven. So if someone want to clone your project, just ask them to use your group ID and artifact ID. If they pass those details of your project, they can simply clone and get all your code into their local repository with the help of 3 simple lines. One is group ID, artifact ID, and version. Okay, so whoever want to publish their jars or their projects into Maven, it's mandatory that Maven asks you to provide all these three information. Okay, so even if you want to create a Maven project, you have to provide this. Okay, so that's the importance of these three. Now let's come back. Right, so we have seen that artifact ID and group ID, and archetype generate is a keyword used to create a new project in Maven. Okay, so when I say creating Maven project, firstly it gives you a dummy skeleton. It's simple skeleton. You won't have anything code inside it. You have to push all your test cases into that framework. Okay, Java test cases. Basically, if you are working on web, you can push your Selenium. If you are working on mobile, you can push your Appium test cases. And if you are working on API, you can push your API test cases. So first of all, you have to create a project with the template what you are interested in. Maven gives you multiple templates. Okay, so out of the templates it have, so what template your whole company or whole project is recommended, you have to download that template first. So whenever you create any Maven project, it is mandatory that you have to give that group ID and artifact ID, so that in the future if you want to upload this Maven project here, Maven can uniquely identify with these details. So keeping all this in mind, let's create our first Maven project. Okay, so in the real time, when you are building a framework, first you create a Maven project with a skeleton, and slowly you will start building test cases inside it. Okay, so once you have defined outer skeleton of the project and framework folders, and then you start building test cases inside it. Maybe it's up to your own API. It could be based on your automation, mobile, web, or API. Okay, so now let's create a Maven project. So as I said, this is the command help you to create. If you see that Maven, to create Maven project, let me go back to my command prompt. MVN archetype generate. Okay, this will actually create a project. Now, if you want to create a project, it's mandatory that you have to pass group ID. Okay, group ID here is nothing but, it's a high level. You can say my group ID here is my website, QA Click Academy. Now, after giving group ID, you have to pass artifact ID, which is nothing but your actual jar which you need from this main group ID project. Okay, so in QA Click Academy, there are multiple courses I have. So I am working on Maven Java. This is my project name, Maven Java. Okay, so I have, you have to firstly give group ID. -D stands for parameter. So when you pass each and every parameter, you have to say -D so that Maven understands this as a parameter. -D group ID equals to, or you can simply edit here and then we can place this command there directly. So as I said, this will create a project, and -D stands for parameter, and group ID here I am saying is QA Click Academy. And artifact ID is the actual sub project you are working inside this group. That could be my Maven Java, that could be your project name. Okay, so this, whatever you define your artifact ID will stand as your project name. Okay, so yeah, these two you are clear. Till this line you are very clear that this helps to create a project and you have given the parameters. And what is this? Archetype artifact ID. So out of multiple templates Maven provides for testing, commonly people uses this template. Okay, that's why you are saying main folder and test folder. For specific test projects, archetype quick start is the common template people use across all the organizations for their test framework development. Okay, so when you say Maven archetype generate, there are at least hundreds of templates Maven have. So templates in the sense skeleton, how your project hierarchy should look like. Okay, but for development, website development, people use one hierarchy, and for database, people use one hierarchy. But for our test projects, there is one common template, and that template is nothing but archetype hyphen quick start. Okay, that template information will be given in this parameter archetype artifact ID. Okay, so that value is quick start. This is like one time use. You need to remember this command. This command will give you the testing template, a very simple. All right, so with this command you are saying that generate me the testing template with this group ID and with this artifact ID, and that's all. It creates and everything, and it gives you dummy project. Let's see that. Okay, so I hope you are clear with this command, and when someone asks you to explain this, you can clearly explain the importance of these two and why you have selected quick start, because it's the template for testing. So click on enter, and that will take a few seconds and create a dummy Maven project with a neat hierarchy skeleton for you, and thereafter you will slowly put all your projects inside it, test cases, whatever you develop. Yeah, you see that build success. That means project is successfully created with artifact ID Maven Java. Let's go and check how it got created in my folder at Rahul location. Yeah, you see that in my location there is a project called Maven Java. I told you, right, with artifact ID whatever you pass, your project will be created with that value. Okay, as you passed your artifact ID as Maven Java, you will see it as Maven Java. So once you open that, you will see just like the skeleton what I explained here. You will see source and pom.xml, and the source you will see two folders, main and test. All your test cases will go on to this folder, and all your utilities will go into the main folder. And as I said, pom.xml is heart of your Maven. So all your dependencies to pull the jars and to run your test cases, everything information is passed into this XML document only. So Maven reads this XML document and runs your test cases. Okay, so this could be your driver script for your Maven frameworks. Now, by seeing this, you are not clear. Let's import this into Eclipse so that I can clearly explain and write some test cases. Yeah, so but before you import this project into your Eclipse to start working, you need to do one little change. Okay, Eclipse expect one .class path file in this Maven project to make this project compatibility to and for Eclipse to work. Okay, so if you want to run this in your Eclipse, there are some, because by default you will create projects in Eclipse itself, but if you created something outside of Eclipse and you want that to use in Eclipse, so for that there is one file called .classpath file which Eclipse looks for. By default that file is not present with your Maven project. Okay, you won't get that. So you need to create that file, and then you can import your project into Eclipse. If you don't create that file, it will throw an error when you want to connect your Maven project with this Eclipse. So for that reason there is a command. So that's why I given a specific point here, integrate Maven with Eclipse. So you have to go inside the project first of all. So that means to this level. So once go inside the Maven Java, okay, at this level where your POM is actually lying, you have to go to that specific level. Okay, so POM lies in Maven Java. Okay, so now your location is moved to this particular point where exactly your file is pointing, right? And here you need to give a command called mvn eclipse. This is the command you need to give so that that file will be automatically generated for you, so that you can happily import the project into Eclipse. Hit and enter, and meanwhile let me write this command here, mvn eclipse. Okay, that's all. Let's go back and you see that build is success. So that means you go back to your path and you see that dot class path and dot project, two files are created extra after giving that command. Okay, so these files are necessary if you want to import this project to Eclipse. So as these are generated, now let's happily go and import our project into Eclipse. Okay, so that we will be doing in our next section. So till now we are clear till the 6th point, right? We have created a dummy skeleton project, test project, by giving our own group ID and artifact ID, and we have successfully added one new file to integrate that in Eclipse. Alright, so we will import that into Eclipse and start doing some validations on our Maven project. Thank you.